Good morning, Flagler. The doctors are in. I'm Dr. Scott Cleos.
And I'm Dr. Andrea Cleos.
We are here once again to talk about your health and health issues right here in Flagler, Volusia, and St. Johns County. Have we talked about our trip for our 30th anniversary?
No,
I know we talked to people about
and
where
we
we're going
actually
on
had
it.
a question that somebody posed to us that we can talk about as well.
Oh, okay. What do you want to do first?
Let's talk about our trip really quickly. It was a wonderful 30th anniversary trip that we celebrated with my guest parents. I studied in Berlin as a kid and growing up, and went to school and college and in high school there for a bit. And it was just, I spent a lot of time with them. He was a scientist or mathematician who worked with my dad, who helped put our space shuttle up in orbit. My dad was very involved in different aspects of flight and aerofluid dynamics. He was a rocket scientist also, in the sense that he did help build those space shuttle tiles, not the glue, for many of you who remember the tiles coming off because it was faulty
That
glue.
wasn't his fault.
He didn't do the glue. But anyways, because Ulf and Uta were in America a lot, I would go over and spend summers with them in 7th, 8th, 9th grade, went over there to live for a year in 10th grade, and then again back in college. But it was a wonderful time. So they were celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary, and we celebrated our 30th, and we brought your stepdad.
Yep.
Grandpa Doug.
Grandpa Doug came with us.
They're in their 80s, and Grandpa Doug was 88. And so...
and they all made it.
They all made it and did well. We went to...
And Andrew's insisting that Grandpa Doug's coming with us when we go back over there in a couple of years.
We're going to go to France this
I told him he's coming with us dead or alive.
Yeah.
He's either going to walk over there, fly over there with us, or we're bringing his urn or something.
Yeah. So we met, part of the beginning of the trip, we met the scientist who invented the beamer signal, and were involved in that. And then he was also involved in the cloud signal with the company Centropics. And it was fascinating talking to him and talking about the evolution of both beamer and now cloud. And so we spent a lot of time doing that. And that was a really nice time speaking with him and the owner, Nick Gleim, who was the owner of the Centropics company, or Code. And then we went to Vienna and Prague.
Yeah, and the reason we chose these places, we didn't pick them, but Andrew's guest parents, Jutta and Ulf, live in Berlin. So we started off in Munich and walked around there for a while, and then went to Vienna, which was awesome. And Prague is actually where Ulf, Andrew's guest father, grew up. I shouldn't say grew up, it's where he was born. He was born in 1941. And he was a German living in Prague at the time. And
his dad was a professor at the university.
Right. So, and this was an area that was very concentrated with Germans. So, unfortunately, historically, the Nazis came into then Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
Was it Czech Republic then?
No, it's a Czech Republic.
Now it was Czechoslovakia. So, basically that was the first place that the Nazis took, and everyone stood by and let it happen. Neville Chamberlain, who was the then, what was his title? I'm blanking on. He's
Prime Minister?
Prime Minister of Britain. And he just said, well, let them have Czech, the Czechoslovakia, just in the name of peace. So you see how that worked out. That's, unfortunately, is his epitaph. But at the end of the war in 1945, the Czechs held a grudge, understandably, and kicked all the Germans out of there. So he only lived there for 4 years, from 1941 to 1940. He's the nicest guy in the world, but, unfortunately, he was a victim of circumstance, and he left in 1945. So he doesn't have a lot of memories of the place, but he did know where he grew up and, the house that he lived in, so he went to visit all that. The best part of Prague, in my opinion, and Czech, is there's poppy seeds growing all over the place over there, and wild poppies, and poppy seed desserts are very popular there, and I love it. Mohnkuchen, and they have we would make the classic strudel, apple strudel, and Andrea makes an awesome one that she got from her aunt. It's an Austrian recipe, basically, and it's nice. But these things, instead of being filled with apple, they're filled with poppy seed. I mean, I couldn't pass a drug test if my life depended on it, because my rule was over there, if I saw Mohnkuchen or if I saw the poppy seed pastry, I would buy it. So I also gained a lot of weight, and Andrea reminds me that I have central adiposity now, because I do have central adiposity.
I don't remind him, but he likes to tell me where he shouldn't eat and get leaner, which he will.
I am. I'm already getting leaner.
There you go.
Wait,
Good,
do I
see?
look it, or do I still have central adiposity?
I'm not commenting. That's for you to comment about yourself.
I'm much better than I was, for sure. But I still got a little ways to go.
And we're supposed to be going to a wedding in Italy
Oh, my
and
gosh.
England.
These trips kill me.
To see family
Well,
in
you know,
the
when
end
you-
of this month. And the problem is they love to feed you, especially when you go to a wedding. And it's a Jewish wedding in England. And so it's very interesting.
Oh, a sister, huh?
Yeah, but we better do some fasting now before that event.
Well, I've decided I'm not going to, suffer on vacation. If I go to someplace, like if I go back to Prague, I'm going to do the same thing. All of the Mannkuchen I'm going to eat. Right? And I just, deal with it when I come home. So just
Kind of.
sort of. I am dealing with it. I mean, I don't like the way this conversation's going, personally. Don't tell them I'm sitting here in my underwear with my belly hanging out.
I'm saying nothing.
I am sitting here in my underwear. So is Andrea. No, Andrea's not.
No, I
Just
don't.
the one of us this time. So that was awesome. And when we were in Vienna, what was great, there were so many things within walking distance of our Airbnb that we stayed in. Right up the street, there was something called a votive church. And basically, a votive church is a church that is built to commemorate some miracle or Thanksgiving. And there was an attempt on the then Emperor of Vienna, and I think at the time he was like 23 years old or something like that, and some 21-year-old tried to kill him. And his attempt failed, and there happened to be a doctor around who attended to him right away, and they were able to save his life. So to thank God for saving the emperor's life, they built this votive church, which was absolutely amazing. I mean,
So beautiful.
So beautiful, and all these statues of the disciples and Jesus, and we learned a lot about how to recognize the disciples based on what elements they were carrying in their hand, and I guess we learned that Peter has the keys because he had the keys to the kingdom, right? And then others had a sword. Did someone have a sword? And the others had, different things. So we learned a lot from that. And also it's really, really interesting over there in those churches, they actually have events. It's not like you just go to church, but they'll actually have concerts in these places. And in this same votive church, they had...
Which we do here, too.
A light
we just
show.
Haven't, go to them. But we did with Andrea. Yeah, with, who is the guy Batista... that we hear.
Francesco.
Francesco, yeah. So sometimes in our churches, too, in the evenings or the weekends, they have music events where people will come from Europe and play, and we'll have musical events. But this particular church had a light show. A light show that was like depicted the world, the evolution of the world.
It was basically creation is what it was supposed to be.
Creation,
evolution, all that stuff. But this was an orchestrated light show, and it was so cool. You know how they have these arched domes over the top of the church, and the way they would project light on there, it almost looked like you were in the bottom of an aquarium. So it made it almost look like fish were swimming on top of you. I don't even know how they did it, because you wouldn't see anything on where the struts were. The struts were underneath of the picture. So yeah, they had to blank out the parts that were where there was some kind of strut or support, could have made it look like it, but absolutely fantastic. And the other thing that we saw, a couple other things that we saw over there in Vienna, we were in within walking distance of Sigmund Freud's office. He practiced right out of his home where he lived with his family, right there in Vienna.
Which many physicians did in that time.
Yeah. So, he did all of his psychoanalysis right there, and now it's a museum. You can go up there and see the room that he used to see patients in and where all of his kids stayed, so on and so forth. And the last thing we saw, also within walking distance, was something called the Josephineum, which was a museum. Now a museum. Back then, it was an academy that was built by Joseph II, who was then the Holy Roman Emperor. And I guess he resided up somewhere in Vienna there. And he built this Josephineum as an academy. And in 1769, he discovered the art of wax modeling. He was over on a trip to Italy, and he saw these wax models that were being made of all kinds of different things, including human anatomy. And they would have, anatomists basically do dissections, and these wax sculptors would reproduce these dissections in wax. And you see these things, and they are absolutely...
And so he had it commissioned to
That's
do
right.
the human body extensively with every detail. There were how many pieces?
1,200.
1,200 pieces of works of art, and every detail of the human body. It was like you were going through anatomy lab.
You walk into this room and it looks like there's a bunch of dissected corpses all over the place, and they've got
more
rooms
than
on
one
child.
room. Yeah.
Oh, there was rooms all over the place because there were 1,200 of them. But supposedly the anatomists and the wax artists completed all these 1,200 models in 6 years, and then they shipped these things on basically donkeys across the Alps to get over to Vienna. So they went from Italy to, they went to Florence, Italy, over to Vienna on donkeys, and then finally arrived in like 1786. And you're looking at this stuff, and it's like, I can't believe how well they knew anatomy back in 1786. And they had a whole room of childbirth and the deformities, different kinds of deformities and birth defects and forceps deliveries, which I didn't even know they were using forceps back then. But I mean, you look at it and it's like, I can't believe that there were artisans back in the late 18th century that could do this. So if you're ever in Vienna, go see the Josephinium.
If you don't get goosed out by, by seeing cadavers, because it really is like you're seeing a cadaver.
But they don't
so if
smell.
You can handle that.
They don't smell like formalin or anything like that.
And they're great
because of the
study
wax.
specimens.
But these things have been there, since
1786. Yeah.
And they still look awesome. And they got them up in these...
1776.
1786.
Yeah. So, unbelievable. It was a fascinating museum.
Yeah. So that was our... little European odyssey, seeing things.
And Prague was beautiful. An amazing city. If you've never been there, it's an amazing city, and so much to see, so much to do. They speak English. Everyone speaks English there. They definitely don't speak German.
Still hold a grudge.
And,
don't blame them.
They have really wonderful museums. Science museum, the wonderful science museum. We went to see one of the first hospitals. That was really interesting.
That was by happenstance.
I
had to pee so bad, and we walked in, and I'm like, oh, this is a hospital. And the place was built in like 1300 and something.
Yeah, it was incredible.
And it's been operating continuously since 1300.
Yeah, and they have this beautiful bridge.
Yeah, Charles Bridge.
The Charles Bridge, which had statues all along the bridge, is very famous. The food was fantastic. I mean, excellent. We ate at some really top restaurants.
We can't say enough about the place.
Yeah,
Go
Prague
see
was
Prague,
great.
Czech
Yep.
Republic.
That's
all
right.
Guys.
It's now called the Czech Republic.
Yep. We're going to take a quick break. If you have any questions for myself or Dr. Andrea, you can email us at the doctors and doctorisin at WNZF.com. You're listening to the Doctors In on WNZF News Radio 1550 AM, 94.9 FM. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment.
She's Carla.
And that's Alan.
If you don't know who we are,
Now you do.
we're the owners of your local Benjamin Moore paint store.
Next time you're thinking about painting, think about us. Benjamin Moore, corner of Old Kings and Utility Drive.
Palm Coast.
Radiology Associates has been a trusted name in Volusia, Flagler, and St. Johns County for over 50 years. Radiology Associates is the first and only radiology provider to bring our neighbors of Flagler County 3 Tesla MRI, 64-slice CT, and time-of-flight PET CT in our Palm Coast Imaging and Town Center Imaging locations. This is our community. Our doctors live here and strive to provide only the best care to you, our neighbors. For more information about Radiology Associates, visit us online at radiologyassociatesimaging.com.
Thank you so much for recommending us to your family and friends. When you need a 30, 60, or 90-minute massage, it's real easy to book your appointment online. MassageByNatalie.org. MassageByNatalie.org.
And we're back. For those of you just joining us, we spent the first half of this week's show talking about our wonderful 30th anniversary that we celebrated with my stepfather, who's 88 years old, Grandpa Doug, and Andrea's guest parents from Germany that she learned German from back when she was a teenager, Uta and Ulf. Uta was a cardiologist over in Berlin, adult and pediatric cardiologist, and Ulf was he a mathematician?
Yeah,
he was a
did
mathematician, worked
mathematics.
with Andrea's dad, and they kind of collaborated to basically have a very productive professional career, publishing a lot of papers on all sorts of things, mainly on aerospace, chaos, stuff like that.
Dad did the chaos. Ulf did aerospace.
Ulf didn't do it.
He did fluid flow.
But I thought that was part of the chaos. Was part of air. No?
I don't think so. I think
that
it was
turbulent
my dad.
flow.
Dad was later on in life that he did that by himself.
But very, very cool. So we had a great time with that. But we also, Andrew was talking, we had a couple of questions this week. And one of the ones that really interested us that we want to talk. A lot of times we just answer them privately. People call us and we just send them an email back or something. But this was a woman who wrote to us who said that she had a friend of hers who just had sweats profusely, okay, and wanted to know if there was anything that she could do about that. So the professional term, go ahead.
It's hyperhidrosis.
Hyperhidrosis. So, hydrosis is basically sweating. It's, water. So you can have, anhydrosis, which means you can't sweat, or hyperhidrosis, right? So anhydrosis you can see in certain entities like Horner syndrome. These are people who may have like a stroke or a dissection in their neck, and they knock out the sympathetic nervous system, and they get this classic triad. I think they get ptosis of one of their eyes, and they get pupil. That's right. Their pupil constricts, and they also get
lose the ability
they lose the ability to sweat on that side of their face. So that's anhydrosis. And hyperhidrosis can be caused by many, many things. Some of them are just congenital, or hereditary is what I should say.
So it's a genetic defect. So that would be a primary hyperhidrosis. And you see it in families where family members will just sweat profusely.
Right. So if this gentleman that you're referring to has, he said his mom and his dad or someone in his family or a lot of people in his family, it's probably just a genetic,
And they think that, obviously a gene could be disrupted that will overstimulate the sympathetic nervous system. So if we talk about our autoimmune system, we have a sympathetic and a parasympathetic. The sympathetic is a fight or flight where we're running from the saber-toothed target. Our heart rate goes up and we just don't have a bowel movement. Our heart is racing and we're trying to get out of there. Not a time to digest, not a time, and our respiratory rate, our breathing will get up faster and faster. Parasympathetic is what we do when we're doing yoga class. We take that nasal deep breath in from our nose. We vasodilate, dilate our lungs, pressing down that diaphragm. That activates the parasympathetic nervous system to help us relax. So when you're anxious and your heart's racing, taking those deep breaths through your nose and expanding your lungs to lower that diaphragm will help you calm down and manage the stress or the anxiety episode that you're having. That flips you from being sympathetic to parasympathetic. And so in the case of hyperhidrosis, it's an overactivation of the sympathetic nervous system, particularly focused on sweating.
Right. So that's the first thing you want to look at, is that there's some inciting event, or is your friend just basically, on edge all the time? That can cause you to sweat if you're not, like Andrew said, it's a sympathetic response. But, there can be stimulants that also cause people to have this hyperhidrosis. I had a partner of mine who was from South America, and the guy loved spicy foods, right? And we would go to Chipotle at lunch, and watching him eat that spiced, bowl, whatever he got, it was like he was working out. He would bring his bowl to the table with literally a stack of napkins that was probably 12 inches high. And he needed all that, because I would sit there and watch. He would take a bite, and it's not like he'd be a little moisture on his head. It would be dripping sweat on the table. And I would look at him. I'm like, are you enjoying this? Because it looks painful. He goes, oh, no, it's great. It just every time I eat spicy food, it makes me sweat. So obviously there was something that his body was responding to that caused him to sweat profusely while he's eating a spicy bowl from Chipotle.
Well, it was activated. The spice was activating his sympathetic nervous system.
Right. But like it wasn't just a little bit. He constantly had to take a bite and then basically spend the next minute wiping his face and, his nose and all that other stuff. There's certain medications that can cause hyperhidrosis.
Right.
Rattle those off for me, because I don't know what they are.
Some of those medications are going to be, you can actually have an overactivation of your thyroid gland. You can actually have medications like carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, which is not something we would take. We used to have a medication that was an antimuscarinic, anticholinergic that was atropine and scopolamine. some antihistamines can induce, antihistamines can stop the excess sweating, not induce it. If you have other...
So that's something this person could possibly take. I mean, bottom line is he's got to figure out what's inciting this hyperhidrosis and whether it's familial. And
but the medical causes, you can have medical causes. Like I said, you can have issues with your thyroid gland. You can have a higher... There's causes, I'm thinking of, metanephrine and normetanephrine, which are overactivation. They're neurotransmitters or hormones that actually activate the sympathetic nervous system, and you can have a hyperproduction of those.
Fight or flight.
And they will not only cause you to sweat, but you may have chronic high blood pressure. So that can be a cause. So you can have secondary causes. So there can be medication causes. There can be metabolic issues. Diabetes, obesity can stimulate an overactivation of the sympathetic nervous system, inducing excessive sweating. My brother, there's 4 of us in the family, and one of my brothers actually has this hyperhidrosis when he runs. I mean, literally, when you run with him, and we don't have to run that far or that hard, he will have like a pile of sweat just pooling at his feet. Like his shoes will be soaking wet. It's pretty impressive, and he said he's always had that. So he has a form of that. Doesn't have high blood pressure, doesn't have any other issues, but when he runs, it really overstimulates his sympathetic nervous system. So he's getting a good cardiac workout for sure.
Yeah, see, I have a hard time sweating. I mean, it's...
I don't sweat very much either.
I'm sure it's because I've seen you come back from a run. You look...
Well...
I mean, granted, you ran 15 or 20 miles.
Well, and if it's hot outside, I will sweat.
Well,
but I mean,
that's the
otherwise,
other thing. We live in Florida, so, some of that hyperhidrosis may just be the environment we live in.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. So... I hope this was helpful to the person who asked the question. I believe it came from Maggie, or a friend of Maggie's, one of our listeners. And we do love when you guys pose questions, or questions you want us to discuss, or topics that you want to discuss, because it's always interesting when we can give back to the listener. So make sure it's your show and you enjoy it, and we can give you things that you're interested in.
Maybe someone will ask us about toe fungus or something.
Yeah. Who knows? That's kind of like an interesting question, I guess, for someone.
Well, I mean, I can tell you our own son, who likes to go, traipsing through, bogs and swamps and stuff like that. He's probably got a little bit of an issue with that because his feet are always wet, right?
Yeah.
So,
what made you go to toe fungus from hyperhidrosis?
Well, I figured I could get the next grossest thing down the line.
Well, I don't think hyperhidrosis is gross. You just sweat.
Oh, you should see. When you sit there and watch Oscar eat lunch, you'll think it's gross. I mean, it's literally, you're sitting across like, dude, this looks painful. I mean, really, you're okay, right? I don't have to call 911. You're not having a heart attack or something.
I wouldn't think I'd want to induce sweating and then go back to work. Although I have to say, when Carol and I go for a walk at lunch when we're able to, sometimes we come back pretty sweaty.
Yeah, this is more than just a little, perspiration. This is a full on, drenching. So,
yeah.
But it's interesting how I'm sure there's probably some historic genetic benefit to all of that. Maybe as the world gets hotter, that guy may be the only one that survives it. Because he's able to cool off and with this hyperhidrosis. But unfortunately, in today's modern society, if you really got it bad, it can be, a little bit of a stigmata because, you can't keep a shirt dry, right? So, but they do say that using these aluminum-based antiperspirants seem to help with that. I'm not a big fan of the aluminum-based antiperspirants, but, that's supposedly something that would help kind of mitigate that, especially in the armpit area.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, we always think about the autonomic nervous system as being predominantly in our brain or being from our brain. And yet the heart has some of the most powerful neurons that run from the heart to the brain and help regulate that autonomic nervous system, both the sympathetic and parasympathetic. And it actually goes to the gut too. And that's the reason why when we're emotionally excited or anxious about something, that is the etiology of where our heart rate will speed up and activate our brain and our gut, and we may even get a little nauseated. And that's overactivation coming from an emotional feeling. So if we can regulate our emotions, take that nasal breathing and relax, it would be interesting to see by calming down that parasympathetic nervous system, just like you would do for anxiety, if it would also help with that hyperhidrosis.
Well, that you would have to calm down the sympathetic nervous system, right?
Well, you would activate the parasympathetic in order to. So they both don't go at the same time. They're yin and yang of each other.
Right. So, they control different parts of our anatomy, but usually aren't going on at the same time. In some situations, they are.
So it's kind of interesting that your heart can actually be the initiator or the regulator of some of these. Of this autonomic nervous system. And I think this is more of a newer science that's going on, and there's now newer fields of medicine in neurocardiology, because they feel these are some of the drivers that drive some irregular heart rhythms or overstimulation of the heart. So we can control our emotions. We can control sometimes how we feel. Sometimes we actually have to allow ourselves to be reminded of positive thoughts and calm ourselves down. And that's one of the reasons why we at Shield of Life, we sell and we rent the electromagnetic frequency mats, because these mats are designed to regulate and help regulate the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system in the body. And so it can help slow down the energy activation and raise the parasympathetic to prepare you to sleep. It can help you relax when it comes to, or energize you when it comes to starting your day, or balance you if you happen to be in balance where you're always running more on the anxious side. This company, Centropics, also sells a bubble that very many people that struggle with a lot of anxiety disorders will wear the bubble, and they actually are synchronized, and it helps regulate their sense of anxiety and nervousness. Because horses are very much driven off the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems, they're either running or they're relaxing, and can flip from one system to the other very, very rapidly. These mats have been used, these Centropics mats have been used in horses to help regulate them. There was a story, and I don't remember if I shared this with you all, of a horse, Ginger, who had progressive neurologic decline in her left hip. And no other electromagnetic frequency mat was noted to be able to do this type of healing. And she had progressive neurologic decline in her left hip, and they would have put that horse down. And they decided to use this little higher end electromagnetic frequency mat than the standard ones. And not only did she recover, but when her foal was born, her baby was born, instead of taking 4 or 5 hours to stand, the baby horse, colt, stood right away, which was fascinating to the veterinarians who were working with her. So and when we were talking to Dr. Kafka in Munich, he talked about how these newer mats actually stimulate the nerve, sending action potentials down the nerve that then increase muscle contractility, and that's recovering the nerve from injury and trauma and healing, and can help regulate these dynamic processes in our bodies, muscles, and nerves. So very fascinating. And if any of you want to be ever introduced to the cloud, please give us a call at Shield of Life, or look us up at Shield of Life and shieldoflife.com, and we'd be happy to give you an exposure to it so you can see what it's like. And you can even rent them if you'd like.
All right, guys, that's all the time we have. If you have any questions for myself or Dr. Andrew, you can email us at thedoctorsin, doctorisin at WNZF.com. Thank you for listening. Stay happy, stay healthy. We'll see you next time. The doctors are out.